Hello and welcome to Melomaniax, podcast where we take unbiased deep dives into the biggest musicians and bands of all time. I'm Ashton.
And I'm Dallas. Today we're going to be talking about the French duo. That's right, it's Daft Punk. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and please do hit us with those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or whatever platform you're listening to this on. Also, we have a Patreon. We offer one $5 per month tier. It's going to give you access to a lot of cool perks, and we're going to be expanding those perks more as the show goes on. So we certainly appreciate you looking into that. You can find all that info at our website, Melomaniax with an X.com. So Daft Punk, should we get into it? I know this is one of your favorites.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites. Real quick, during our little intro, I almost just didn't even say my name. I was about to have to ask like line for my name, just to remember. Yeah. Sometimes you forget those things.
Yeah. I'm
Oh shit. Line?
Oh yeah, Tom. Sorry.
Tom. That's
Wait, no.
Yeah, I love the wait, no.
Got it wrong. I beefed it again. Like the director's behind the camera like, you got to be kidding me.
Come on, dude. Come on.
This is going to be a really long day.
Yeah, right.
This was supposed to be the simplest scene.
Yeah, the easiest one, the introduction.
Yeah.
You can't get it.
I've been there.
Anyways,
so Daft Punk.
Daft Punk.
What's your history with Daft Punk?
I'm a huge Daft Punk fan. Right there.
Are you more a fan of the Daft or the Punk?
Oh, the Punk.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. But the I got real big into them when their Random Access Memories album came out, or kind of like the end of high school. Really, I was into them, and then that album came out, and that's what really sent me into like Daft Punk everything, was the love for that album. And then I went and discovered all their old stuff and like went through everything. So like I've listened to their discography at least 3 to 4 times through before even doing this episode. So it was I'm a big fan. I always wanted to buy one of the helmets. I always wanted my brother Braden and I to do I wanted us to cosplay as these guys, because like one of them's a little shorter and the other's a little taller. It's kind of like Braden and I's heights would look well, and the one he likes is like each of us like the other one, so like we would have the 2 different like helmets and stuff. I always wanted to dress up as one of these guys. It'd be so cool. But
that would be cool. Yeah, I don't have as much history with the punkdom, but I do know some of their songs. I did have one funny story. One time I was picking up a buddy at his house, and we had been listening to the song One More Time a lot, as like we just thought it was kind of funny and fun. So I timed it perfectly. I got right to the part where he's about to say one more time and the beat drops, and I paused it and I turned my car up as loud as it could go, and I waited. And as soon as he opened the door, I hit play and just loud as shit through the entire neighborhood. One more time.
Nice. Yeah.
And he just fell out of the car laughing, and it was because it had been like a running joke to that point, and I just hit the timing perfectly on that one. So that's my memory and history with Daft Punk. And also I want to provide a disclaimer for the listeners today. They are a French band, so there's a lot of French words in here.
Oh yeah,
I'm just telling you right now, we're gonna get every single one of these horribly wrong.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, we're not gonna apologize for it because we don't speak French, so you probably get a bunch of American shit wrong too. So
yeah,
that's all right. We're all living the life we live and not other people's. So let's do well to remember that. Shall we dive in back to the beginning?
Yeah, let's go back. So Daft Punk, as we kind of hinted at, consists of 2 members, Guy Manuel and Thomas. Let's get into their full names. Yeah, I know. All right, Guy Manuel de Homem Cristo, I guess.
Nope.
I tried. You know what? I tried.
Too long of a name. Don't have day in your name.
Yeah. Right. Anyways, he was born. Yeah. I love how he has like he has 2 first names and like 2 last names.
He has 2 hyphenetic names and a day in between them.
Yeah.
Which I don't know French, but day in Spanish means of. So it's literally like, that's like calling me like Dallas of the house. Like, like it's not the year 8. Like, come on.
Yeah. So he was born February 8th, 1974 in Neuilly-Hauts-de-Seine, France. It's kind of right outside Paris in a way, like a suburb. And then Thomas Bangalter, there's one I can pronounce, was
That's a
born
good one. Yeah.
January 3rd, 1975 in Paris, France. So our two French heroes met in 1987 while attending secondary school in Paris. And they became friends, started recording some demos with their classmates at school. And in 1992, they formed their first band called Darlin', which was named after a Beach Boys song. And I went back and listened to some of Darlin's music. That's an adventure, because this is just imagine imagine two high school kids just playing instruments in a high school band. That is what that sounds like. And it's weird because you go from Daft Punk,
not good,
where it's electronical and like not, and the only lyrics you would hear, they've done some electronic like editing to the voice. So just hearing them like just straight up sing like Beach Boys stuff is kind of funny, and it is not good at all. But they were just kids. They were just kids. Yeah. So
we all start somewhere. So they wouldn't actually become Daft Punk until the following year in 1993. So Guy and Thomas attended a rave at Euro Disney, of all places, and they met Stuart McMillan, who was the co-founder of the Scottish label Soma Quality Recordings. They gave him a mixtape that contained a few tracks, and one of those tracks was Alive, and it would actually make it all the way through the process onto their debut album.
So as I love how like, definitely not so you can just we have downloaded files now, but I love how as a band in the early days you just have a mixtape on you like a business card. Like you're just ready no matter where you are, what the event is. Like I've got my mixtape for my band like ready to roll. It seems like all these dudes had it in their back pocket like ready for their opportunity. Because nowadays,
and it's interesting that then that was seen as hustle, and now that's seen as like spam. Like if you do that, you are fucked. Like you are blacklisted from whoever you tried to hand that to. They will never work with you.
Yeah, right.
Because for whatever reason, which I don't agree with, like I hate that. But because I do like that hustle of getting out there and making it happen. But now like it's just seen as like spam because there's so much more of it and people are doing it and there's so much shit.
Yep.
Like there was something like we talked about how many songs were uploaded to Spotify every day. Let me get that number real quick. Stand by.
Oh yeah, you told me this number, and I was
yeah, it's about 100,000 songs. This is also October 2022, so that's only gone up. Because to put it in perspective, in 2020 the average daily uploads was 55,000. 2022, 100,000. We're 3 years past that, so by that math, it's doubled again, and it's over 200,000, right?
Yep.
If we stay on that trend, so let's just be conservative. Say 100,000 songs are uploaded every day. There's some crazy statistic that I think 80 or 90% of the artists on Spotify have less than 1,000 monthly listeners. Meaning, out of those 100,000 songs, like 99,900 are just like unlistenable dog shit.
Yeah.
So you see the 100,000 and you're like, oh, what is so much competition? What hope do I have? It's like, yeah, not really. Like it's a lot of quantity, not that much quality. So your competition isn't as stiff as you think if you're doing something good and worthwhile, which, what is that? That's the target we're all trying to hit. So anyway, that's the change of the hustle culture is so different now.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. As far as like them just like they just don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like so excuse me. Anyways, a few years went by before the group actually kind of got in the studio. And in 1995, Daft Punk hit the studio to create the song Defunk. I love that song, by the way. And that song became a successful single. And so the group hired manager Pedro Winter, and then they also signed to Virgin Records due to the success of the single. They made a deal to license tracks through their own production company, Daft Tracks. And they said they picked Virgin as their label because they... So apparently they took a little time picking a label. They had offers from a bunch. They ended up picking Virgin because they said it would give them the most creative freedom possible. They said it felt more like a partnership than like signing under a label as like employees, basically, when they signed with Virgin.
I want to real quickly talk about a licensing deal is the best possible record deal you could get. So the way that works, you're basically Well, first we should define a traditional record label deal. I feel like a lot of people don't understand what this means. Record labels are basically banks. And what you're going to do is offer your music, the rights to it, the ownership to it as collateral, and they're going to give you money to pay for stuff like touring, marketing, all that stuff. Here's the catch. When you get that big advance, that $100,000 advance they used to give out in the 80s, and the guy would go out and spend it all on Coke and Lamborghinis, you owe that back to them. Like they're going to take that from the money your album makes. So you don't make a dime until your album makes $100,000. Do you think everyone albums made $100,000? They did not. So you're in some trouble unless you're a big superstar. If you sign with a real label and you did a deal like that, because they're not going to get that money back. They're going to cut you, and now you have no money and a Lamborghini full of cocaine. So you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But a licensing deal is different. You're going to retain all the ownership to your music. They're not going to own it at all. You're basically going to rent it to them, and they're going to do essentially all of the marketing work and things like that while you maintain the ownership. This is not the best deal for the label. Therefore, they're very rare and usually only done by someone who can demand that, like Motley Crue, for example. Metallica, they're a great example. Metallica's so big, their last like 2 or 3 albums, they own. They just rent out to labels, and every label wants to do it because they know a Metallica album's going to make them money. Where they're not going to gamble on Dallas DeWhite's album because there's no guarantee that's going to make them any money. So they want to own it and make sure they get their collateral. Which is why a debut album being a licensing deal is extremely rare. They must have had some nice friends in that label, or just been,
or their manager.
So astoundingly, even if they were the best thing anyone's ever heard, that's still rare. So there's got to be a little bit more to that story with the Virgin Records signing. I'd be interested to learn about, but them owning it through that Daft Tracks company, that's really cool. And yeah, going with Virgin for a licensing deal is the obvious right move at that point. So that's really good. I know Periphery is another band that does licensing deals. They have a really big, strong social following. They know they can make their money, so they're able to shop it around to labels and be like, hey, it's like you said, it's more of a partnership than a we own you kind of thing, which is the traditional way.
That's cool. I'm glad you laid that out because I didn't really notice that was like a rare thing for it to be a licensing deal, but good for them.
Especially for a first album.
Yeah.
You'll typically see those well into an artist's career when the artist basically takes the approach of, we don't need you anymore. What can you do for us? And they're like, oh, we'll do a licensing deal. It's like, oh, okay, now we're talking.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to put that all on their manager then for probably making that happen. I'm not sure if they had any connections into the scene before, but who knows? So anyways, before the release of their debut album, the band was playing a lot of live shows, landing whatever DJ gigs they could, basically at all kinds of different events, including some shows in America. So they were kind of like just proper DJs at this point, using their own like vinyl records from home and stuff and their own equipment. I think they put on like, at this point, they still were doing like their anonymous thing. I think they just did like Halloween masks. So they've been masked like since the beginning of this. I think the only times there's pictures of the two, like of them really, is like from their Darlin days when they were younger. But like there might be like a picture of them grown up, but like it gets to a point where like you can barely find any photo evidence of these guys. Like it is just them in their robot outfits. But anyways, their debut album, Homework, was finally released on January 20th, 1997. The album would perform decently well for a debut album, hitting number 150 on the Billboard 200. Dance music isn't the easiest genre to climb the Billboard with. Also not the hardest, but it's not the easiest. And the album fell just shy of hitting platinum in the US, but it did at least sell over 1 million copies worldwide. The album had 5 singles released to help promote it. The first single was Da Funk, which we talked about, which hit the Bubbling Under Billboard at number 8. The second single...
So to clarify, that means it was number 108?
Yes, on the Billboard 100, it was 108. So
the Bubbling Under just means you're just outside the 100.
Yeah, and I think that goes up to 100 as well. So there's the Billboard Top 100 and the Bubbling Under 100. So you have basically the top 200 there, just 2 different charts.
That makes sense. But then the album, the Billboard albums, that's 200, right?
Yeah, that is a full 200.
I wonder who decided all this and why.
Yeah, I don't know. The billboards look like they were like kind of like create like solidified in the 60s. It feels like
Yeah.
looking at the history is when it
You
really
know
starts
what?
to come into its own. So is that an
That would be a
episode?
really good episode
Yeah,
to do the historical dive of the Billboard because it comes up a lot on our episodes. I'm going to write that down while you
it
carry
does,
on.
and I actually don't know a ton about the Billboard, like about who they are, what they are, when they came to be. So that would be really cool. Sweet. So I'll continue with these singles. The second single was Indo Silver Club, which didn't land on any charts. The third single was Around the World, which didn't break into the Billboard which did break into the Billboard 100 at number 61, and that's my favorite song from that album. Oh, I don't know. Defunk is really good too. I don't want to make that decision. The final two singles were Burnin' and Revolution 909, and neither one of those were able to hit any notable charts. A lot of their songs hit dance charts, but not necessarily the main charts. So, but I don't really want to mention the dance charts too much, so we'll just mention the regular ones. Following their debut album, the duo embarked on an international concert tour called, all right, hang with me on this pronunciation. It kind of has like German pronunciation. Dafindirect Tour, like literally Dafindirect Tour. Yeah, I think that's how it is.
It really does look German. You're right. Daft Indirect
Tour.
Tour.
It's just spelled Daftendirektor. So it's got German spelling.
The K makes it. Yeah, the K makes it feel real German. Also, the condensing multiple words into one crazy long word, that's very German too.
Yeah. So that was the name of the tour, and they actually used all of their own equipment for stage. So like they provided everything for their own tour, which is kind of funny. I mean, I guess most bands do, but like for an electronic band, that's kind of interesting. Also, that they hadn't like you've got like, well, I guess they have a licensing agreement, so I don't know if they get like they can just go to their label and be like, we need equipment for a tour.
That's probably where it gets a little different. Like a traditional label may get up, some of that stuff. See, I don't know how that works. It's probably very like deal dependent.
Yeah, that's what I'm
but if you're curious as to what like the general rule is, just ask yourself, what's better for the label and what will fuck the artist harder in the ass, and that's usually the answer.
I see. Yeah. I guess it'd also be nice to work with your own equipment for familiarity and settings reasons. I look at your guys.
Yeah,
I
don't know how it works for the dance world.
I see stickers and notes all over your guys' stuff. That's what I mean. Like,
yeah, all of our stuff's labeled stuff. I don't know how it works for dance music at all. For rock stuff, like I do country stuff, if you're doing a festival, if you're doing your own tour, you'll have your own stuff. Like I've never really heard of that not being the case. You may rent some stuff if you're doing a real big tour, but if you're doing a festival where there's 20 bands back to back, they'll usually provide what's called backline, and that is usually amps and drum kit. So drummers will bring their own cymbals, sometimes snare, sometimes pedals, usually cymbals and snare because they take the most abuse. So if they provide them for you, they'll get beat up and broken really quick. So the shells will be there, kick and the toms and stuff like that. And then they'll be already mic'd, and then there'll be amps. Nowadays, like anytime we've had backline provided, we've usually bypassed it because we bring our own stuff, with the exception of the drums. So that's usually how that works. It usually means there'll also be PA and all that stuff, so you don't. So
they kind of provide a basic. I was gonna say they provide like a basic infrastructure.
Yeah, and I mean microphones, PA, all that's kind of expected.
Yeah,
and it could range. Like the problem with backline is you'll get there and it'll be like, I'm not playing this. This is the worst amp I've ever seen. Like, you know what I mean? So like, it's a real roll of the dice. Or the drum kit has, it's all beaten up. It's like a cheap, crap one. So it's, it could be either way. But yeah, we always try to play our own stuff when possible. But sometimes it's just not possible.
It just mentioned it in a way that sounded like, when I was doing the research, it mentioned it in a way that it was like uncommon. So that's why I was like, I guess it's different between DJs and a band. That's where I was like, don't bands just normally bring their own stuff anyways? But yeah, I guess they kind of highlighted it in a way that it wasn't like normal for them to bring their own stuff. But anyways, they put together their little tour with all their own equipment. And they also put together a few music videos for some of the tracks from the debut album. And then those music videos would be later compiled and used for Daft, a story about dogs, androids, firemen, and tomatoes, which was like a couple of like music videos
The
compiled.
Big Four.
Yeah, and of course I read that like Daft, a story about dogs, androids, firemen, tomatoes. I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, well, I guess that kind of like makes sense why the music video for Defunk is like a dude in a dog mask. Like, and then that's how it's just like one guy in a dog mask like existing in the world. And I was like, this makes no sense. And
Yeah.
I guess it has something to do with that. So
Well, that brings us to Daft Punk releasing their second studio album entitled Discovery. And that was a few years later, actually, on March 12th, 2001. This album had a ton of international success as well as plenty of success here domestically in the US. Discovery landed at number 23 on the Billboard 200, which is really nice. Once again, though, this album fell just short of going platinum in the US, but the album did go double platinum in Europe alone. Do we know, is double platinum the same in Europe as it is in US?
yeah, that's over 2 million copies sold among like
Okay, so platinum's
and
1-to-1 for here in Europe.
yeah, and it brings in like UK, Germany, like Portugal, like those places, and kind of combines.
Because sometimes you'll hear like, oh, it went platinum in Haiti, and you look it up, it's like 25 albums.
Yeah,
you're like, oh,
no,
like,
yeah, no. This is they sold over 2 million copies in Europe.
that makes sense. I mean, they're European, and they sound very European, so that makes sense. Europeans would love them. And to that point, everybody has to keep in mind that rave dance music always performs better in Europe than America. It's an interesting thing.
It always
I don't know,
kind of
it just-
has, like, probably always will.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds European, like I said. Like, it's just I don't know how to describe it, but I have an ear for like, oh, that's probably a European band, and then I go look it up, and it's like, oh yeah, they're from Poland or what, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Metal too. I can always pick out European metal. It's always like really theatrical and like over the top. Anyway, that's basically how it's always been and probably will be with dance being bigger in Europe than here. Because we don't joke about Germans loving their rave music for nothing. You think of the German rave, Spanish raves, all of the Ibiza, you know.
I feel like if you listen to Daft Punk, you'd be like, oh, they're just some German like electronic band.
I would guess German. Listening to them, I would guess German. 100%.
And then like,
yeah,
a lot of the word like, I don't know, if you just listen to their first album, like even a lot of the voice dub overs and like it just sounds so German. And to find out they were French, I was like, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I really always thought they were German.
yeah, I would guess that too. So French actually did surprise me when I learned that. So anyway, back to it. The album Discovery had 6 singles released to help it out, and the first one was One More Time, which landed at number 61 on the Billboard 100. That seems shockingly low for how everywhere that song was.
Dude, you'll find that with a lot of their songs that you're like, oh, I know that one. Like it still won't do as well on the Billboard as you would think, because I mean, I guess there's limitations with like this dance music, like this genre, as far as how well it can do. But
yeah, that's weird. Second single, Aerodynamic. That missed out on any major charts. Third single that was released was Digital Love. That did hit some dance billboards, but that's it. The fourth single, and probably one of their most well-known songs, was Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. That actually didn't land on any major charts. Again, surprising. But Kanye West would later sample that song for his own song, Stronger, which would hit number 1 on the Billboard 100. So a lot of people probably know that from that.
Yep.
And Daft Punk would actually perform that song with him at the Grammys. And the final 2 singles, Face to Face and Something About Us, both missed out on the charts. So 2 of them hit the charts, 4 of them didn't.
Yeah, this one wasn't like...
No, is that right? 1 of them hit the charts.
Yeah, one.
Only 1 of them hit the charts.
This
5
one wasn't
didn't.
like
but Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger did kind of hit the charts.
Yeah, in an indirect way, you know. Yeah, this one didn't do as well chart-wise, but people love this album. This one goes down as like... either this one or the most recent are the people's 2 favorites of Daft Punk. It's like there's a split community whether they like this album the most or Random Access Memory. Something I really enjoyed about this album, apart from the music, was the animated film they released alongside it. So Guy Manuel and Thomas were huge fans of anime growing up, so they wanted to like combine this like science fiction element with like entertainment, and so they collaborated with Leiji Matsumoto, and produced the animated film called Interstellar 5555, the story of the secret star system with 5s instead of S's. So that's like the 4 5s or whatever. Anyways, this film has no words or anything, and the only audio is just the Discovery album playing as the soundtrack, and it's got like some like blue animated guys, a band of like these blue aliens are playing, and then somebody like this guy like snatches them up and then like colors them so that they look like humans, and then he like puts them on a stage and just like making money. I think it's just like kind of like the whole thing is like playing at, you know, like labels and kind of how they use artists as like just pieces of property. You'd have to, but anyways, it's a really, really interesting watch for anybody. Like I really enjoyed it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. It was also around this time, speaking of the story of the Secret Star System, that they donned their new robot identities. So they had stayed anonymous up to this point, wearing random masks and whatnot. But from this point forward, you will only ever see them in their iconic, legendary robot get-ups. And a lot of other musicians actually call them robots, like call them the robots at the Grammys and other award shows. So everybody's kind of in on it, and it's like a really fun part of, I don't know what you would call that, like the Daft Punk lore.
Exactly, I was like, it's kind of like the lore. Yeah.
But everybody's kind of in on it, so it ends up being like a fun group thing when you feel like you're in the joke instead of, you know, outside.
Yeah, right. And yeah, it seems like a lot of Hollywood enjoy Daft Punk from the little bits and pieces that you see, because they're not like, it's like they make very they don't show up a lot to events and things like that, but when they do, it seems like everybody's like, oh my god, Daft Punk's here, you know, kind of thing. But anyways, Daft Punk also released their Alive 1997 album on October 1st 2001, which is just it's a live album that took a 45-minute excerpt from that Daft Direct tour that they did a few years back, and then they just like took a little segment, released that as a live album. No charting to talk about with that album. I just wanted to mention its release.
Interesting. A live album for a electronic band is interesting.
Right.
So Daft Punk then took to the studio for only 6 weeks, shockingly short amount of time, to write and record their third album, Human After All, which was released on March 14th, 2005. This album debuted at number 98 on the Billboard 200, which is pretty good, but still was considered to be their biggest flop. It didn't even sell 100,000 copies in the U.S. There were 4 singles to promote it. First single was Robot Rock, which only hit a bunch of dance charts. The second single was Technologic, which is your favorite, right?
Yep, from that album.
And that did actually hit the bubbling under at 16, so 116. The third single was the album namesake, so the title track, Human After All, which did not hit any charts. And the final single from the album was The Prime Time of Your Life, which also didn't land on any charts. So,
yeah, kind of
I guess all in all, that one was considered somewhat of a failure. Although, I mean, seems like it still hit some. I mean, 98 on the 200 is pretty good, so we'll take that.
Yeah, kind of a stinker. I'm not a big fan of this one, but there are a couple good songs. Throughout 2006, 2007, Daft Punk would embark on their Alive 2006-2007 World Tour. Daft Punk's tour was credited with actually kind of helping the return of dance music to like the modern music industry. And it actually helped dance music and that kind of like rave stuff gain a lot more popularity in America again, specifically during that tour.
I was going to say that's about the time where I remember. Yeah.
Yep. It was like a real big thing that tour kind of like revitalized like electronic dance music. So that was kind of cool.
Interesting. So following that tour, Daft Punk returned home to Paris to start working on new material. And they also did some work for the game DJ Hero, which I do remember, but did not actually play. And they were both playable characters in the game, so that's really fun. Yeah. After a few years, it was announced that Daft Punk had composed a 24-track soundtrack for the Disney film Tron Legacy, which I also remember that, although I didn't see the movie, but I heard it was good, and I knew the soundtrack was good. I did hear some clips of that. This soundtrack, though, was widely loved, and it's considered awesome because it's an exact mixture of that classic orchestral sound you expect from a soundtrack, but with a lot of electronic dance beats blended in. And the Tron soundtrack actually ended up hitting number 4 on the Billboard 200 and would actually eventually go platinum.
I thought that was crazy.
So, blending in the electronic elements with the orchestra, it really fits from what I understand, is the story and the setting of that film as well. So that's just...
Oh yeah,
really
for
nice.
sure.
I love
that.
It's crazy so far though that their top album is that.
That album, right? Yeah, I know. People love that album.
But then again, it goes to show you, like, you get the Disney marketing machine behind you. It's amazing what happens. Like, all of a sudden, whoa, we're number 4. It's like, yeah, no shit. Everything we release is number 4.
Yeah, Disney. It's like Disney's like, this one's
we're not doing our job if we're not in the top 5.
Yeah, that is true. So in 2010, Daft Punk was admitted into the...
Oh, here we go.
Ah, man, more French words.
Ordre
des Arts et des Lettres.
You're making a huge mistake, and that is pronouncing every letter.
Yeah, that is my fault. Okay. Oh, des Arts des Lettres. How about that? I barely pronounced half of it. That sounded
pretty good.
I barely pronounced half of it.
Being really stupid, that sounded right to me.
Okay, yep. Anyways, this is an order of merit.
I'm calling myself stupid, by the way.
France.
Not you.
Yeah, it's basically an achievement.
Had to clarify.
It's like an achievement of the arts or literature.
Nice.
Kind of like somebody else, one of our episodes, was it Paul Simon that I haven't even released yet? Somebody that I've done research on has also been admitted to this before.
It sounds like a Paul Simon thing.
Yeah, I was like, it really feels like Paul Simon. Maybe it was, I don't know. Anyways, so they got that, and they also became knighted as well. Both of them are knighted.
Oh,
so that's fun.
Wow. So English?
I think there's a version of it in France.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was wondering about that. So over the next couple of years, Daft Punk would begin working on what would become their final studio album. This album was going to change the preconceived notion that dance music is just created on a computer. So Daft Punk used live instrumentation for almost the entire album. They also brought in a huge Rolodex of guests, musicians from Julian Casablancas, Todd Edwards, Panda Bear, to Pharrell Williams, Nile Rodgers, Giorgio Moroder, and more. Love Nile Rodgers. Random Access Memories, the name of the album, was released on May 17th, 2013. And this was the album that finally achieved a first for Daft Punk, and that is number 1 on the Billboard 200. Let's hear it for him.
Woo!
As for sales, the album would eventually go 2 times platinum in the US and would sell a few more million copies internationally. This album had 5 singles to help promote it. We're going to go through them now. First single was Get Lucky, which was the biggest song from the album, hitting number 2 on the Billboard 100. It was unable to overtake the number 1 song at the time, Blurred Lines. Who does that one?
That was Robin Thicke and Pharrell also. Pharrell Williams was...
Oh, wow. So Pharrell had 1 and 2. Nice.
Yep.
There. Now you understand it's better to be the producer than the artist.
Yep.
Because Pharrell's like, you got 2? I don't care. I got 1 and 2.
Yep.
Second single from the album was Lose Yourself to Dance, the sequel to Lose Yourself by Eminem. I'm joking. That hit the bubbling under at number 3. The first 2 singles were the songs that featured Pharrell Williams, by the way. I think I'm going to start calling him Mr. Billboard, because Pharrell just can't miss.
Dude,
everything he does.
Dude, literally everything he does is like top 5 Billboard stuff.
He's like Disney, yeah.
Yeah, like if you need a good song to be on the Billboard, like just get Pharrell on that shit. You're good. Golden.
Maybe he's really smart, and he comes up to artists. He's like, I'll produce you. Who's your marketing team? And they're like, oh, we're on Sony, and he's like, all right, I'll do it. He goes to the next person. Who's your marketing team? Oh, we're marketing ourselves. Pass. That shit ain't gonna keep my number 1 streak going at all.
Right?
It doesn't matter what I write. It matters how you promote it.
Didn't we look
the third single was isn't that crazy though? Isn't that crazy how that works? Like what I just said is actually I said it as a joke, but it actually is kind of profound. Like, it doesn't matter what you write, it matters how you promote it.
And didn't he, when we did Max Martin, wasn't Pharrell like kind of up there with him for like number 1 songs? Not like close, but like wasn't he on the list?
Max Martin I think he's on the list, but I think
Max Martin was number 2 behind Paul McCartney. But I want to say we saw Pharrell on that like top 5 somewhere.
He might have been down,
or
down
10.
For sure. But I think
he was like on there, and it was weird. Like, Pharrell, what the?
But you have to remember, it was Paul McCartney number 1, Max Martin number 2, John Lennon number 3.
That's right.
And then after that, it was a huge drop off.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
They're not close to catching up. You know what I mean?
But of the other,
which is just
like
insane.
Outside of that 3, I'm pretty sure Pharrell was one of the ones that had a decent amount of number 1s over.
Yeah,
currently.
I would not be surprised at all. And he's producing a lot as well as writing. So
it's more so as a producer, but
interesting. I don't know where those lines are, but anyway. Third single was Doing It Right. That also hit the bubbling under at number 11. The fourth single was Instant Crush, which did not land on any charts. The fifth and final single from the album was Give Life Back to Music, which hit the bubbling under at number 13. So out of those, 5 singles?
Yep.
It seems like the album was really carried by Get Lucky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That seems to be where most of that success came from.
Gigantic. Anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Random
couldn't escape it.
Oh yeah, Random Access Memories would go on to win the Grammy for Best Dance Electronica Album, Album of the Year, and Best Engineered Album, non-classical. And then the song Get Lucky also won the Grammy for Best Pop Duo / Group Performance, and it also won Record of the Year. So they had the best song and best album that year, I think, according to the Grammys.
That's wild.
Yeah,
just cleaned up.
Right? And it's funny because at those
all
Grammys, do what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say all the suits have to hand away all their awards to these 2 robots. They're like, you got to be fucking kidding me, dude.
Dude, and the best part is they go on stage, they don't talk. Obviously, I don't know if anybody knows this. The only talking you hear is the occasional robotic vocal lines on their songs, but they don't talk. So they go up as a huge group. Pharrell being the voice person, Nile Rodgers is with them. It's basically that group of musicians and stuff. That whole group went on stage, and Pharrell accepted the award and did the talking, while the 2 robots just sat there, just unblinking, unmoving, right there with their,
dude,
standing like bodyguards. I'm just thinking,
how genius is it? The two French guys are just at home watching it on TV. Didn't have to get on a plane. Didn't do shit. They just hired 2 guys to go wear the helmets.
What, dude? I know, right? That'd be so great.
You guys get up there and perform. That way, if somebody opens fire at this music festival, we're safe at home.
Right? I know.
We're in the studio working on number 2. You guys get out there and do it.
Yeah, that's just two dudes in a mask. That is also great, though. Amazing. I never thought about that. They can just send other people to shit they don't want to go to. Hey, man, you want to make $50,000? It's just I was like, they'll just reach out
oh, dude, give somebody $2,000. Be like, do you want Daft Punk for a day?
Do you want to go be
Here's
me?
$2,000.
Let's go.
I'll pay you $300 to go up there and bang your head and push buttons on this laptop.
Right. What
if I hit the wrong button? Oh, the laptop's just there for show. Yeah. We're going to control everything.
I'm controlling everything from home, actually.
Yeah. I'm here texting the producer what to do. Yeah. So it's actually funny. We kind of get on this. This reminded me of, Gene Simmons had this idea, which I think is actually a pretty cool marketing idea. He said he sees Kiss as less of a band and more of the easiest analogy I could think of is Batman or James Bond, where it's there's been a bunch of different people that have been Batman and James Bond. He sees Kiss that way. That's why he was saying when they retire, one of the thoughts they had, I don't know if they'll actually do it, would be just get new members of Kiss and keep the legacy going, but just with new guys. I was like, that's pretty cool. Daft Punk could do something similar.
Yeah, they definitely could.
Any anonymous band could. I mean, not that Kiss is anonymous anymore, but you get the idea. So anyway, they cleaned up at the Grammys. And after this, Daft Punk wouldn't work on any more music of their own. They would actually hit the studio and help produce Kanye West's 6th album, Yeezus. The duo worked on the songs specifically On Sight, Black Skinhead, I Am a God, and Send It Up. And that was a smash as well. So they stayed in the industry for sure.
Yep. And then following this, they actually did some work with The Weeknd on his album Starboy. So they did they helped produce it, and then they actually were featured on the track Starboy and I Feel It Coming. And then the song Starboy would actually hit number 1 on the Billboard 100. So I don't know if that counts as a number 1 towards their repertoire at all, but just wanted to mention that.
It would count the same way that Get Lucky counted for Pharrell.
Yeah, but Pharrell did some vocals on it, so that makes
that's true.
a little more sense. Yeah. But Daft Punk did they're in the music videos and stuff, you know what I mean?
Actually, even though it's a Daft Punk song, I never thought of this until now, but even though that's a Daft Punk song featuring Pharrell, I feel like if you asked anyone on the street, they'd say it's a Pharrell song. I love that Pharrell song. You know what I mean? They would maybe even not know that it was even featuring Daft Punk. They might just think it was Pharrell.
Right? Yeah. That makes sense. So then Daft Punk also worked on a song called Overnight with a band called The Parcels. And I only bring that up because through me having to search for everything Daft Punk ever did, I found that song, discovering the band The Parcels, and I love the band The Parcels now. So if anybody out there, you're a fan of Daft Punk or anything like that, and you don't know who the Partials are, they're immediately one of your new favorite bands. I promise. So
Yeah,
get
you
out
showed
there.
me them. They are really good.
Yeah, good. They're like a less electronic Daft Punk. So they still have that like the same kind of guitar patterns of like the light, quick strumming.
Oh yeah, the funk. That's the
they've
Nile
got like
Rodgers specialty.
and that's where Nile Rodgers, when they brought him into that album, it was like, oh yeah, and it
That's
is
like
a
the one thing
staple
he
of
does.
him.
He is the master of that. Yeah. If you bring Nile Rodgers in, that's what you're bringing him in for. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it works so well with
Yeah.
that kind of music though. But
It's
the Partials
such
are
an
just
interest-
a
it's old school 70s funk. So Nile Rodgers is from the band Chic.
that's
his
like
band,
I was
so.
gonna say the Partials even sound like a funk band from the 70s. Like the name the Partials
awesome.
is like. But
That's so
anyways,
true.
definitely want to check them out. And then
17 dudes in afros on the cover. You're like, I'm gonna love this.
yeah. Dude,
So
that is so true with old albums, man. I'm like
if
I
there's
look at
more
it,
if there's more afro than face, it's gonna rip.
bro, I know. I'm like looking through album covers, I'm like, that is an abnormally large amount of black men on the cover. Gotta listen.
What do these guys do? There's 17 of them. I can't even name 17 instruments.
Right? But they're good at them. They're better than anyone you've ever heard.
Oh, dude, it's the best music you've ever heard.
I know.
70s funk is top. So back to Daft Punk. On February 22, 2021, Daft Punk released a video called Epilogue. Very dramatic. The video features a scene from their film Electroma.
I think so.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cancer you get from rocking too hard to Daft Punk.
Mm-hmm.
It depicts one of the robots blowing up as the other walks away into a desert sunset. Pure drama. Later that day, it would be announced that Daft Punk was disbanded for good, and later the two would say they were moving in different directions. So Thomas said he was more interested in film, and Guy Manuel was more interested in hip-hop. They have since released a 25-year anniversary edition of Homework, as well as a 10-year anniversary edition of Random Access Memories. And as of now, the two have no plans of reuniting, yet they remain friends and still share their studio with all their equipment. So here's to hoping for some sort of a comeback someday.
Or at
With that
least
in
for
mind,
me. Yeah.
we're going to move into our ratings here. So we rate every band on this show as a combination of kind of objectivity and subjectivity, obviously. So we rate them across 6 categories, and then we average those categories for a total out of 5. So those categories are creativity, evolution, replayability, cultural impact, emotional connection, and nostalgia factor. If you want to follow along with us and rate them yourselves and send us your ratings, we always encourage you to do that too. So let's get started with Daft Punk here today. Creativity. What out of 5? What you thinking?
I'm going to lead the way with a 4 out of 5 on creativity. I think dance music itself is not super creative necessarily. It's kind of like hip hop and rap where you're really sampling old music and then adding on top of it or adding to it is kind of like, which can be creative within the space. That's kind of where they got their roots, is true DJ stuff. And then I guess if you go before that, they were just a band, with instruments. Then they did that, and then they finally evolved back into like doing electronic music, but with like live instrumentation. So I think for creativity and their evolution, I'm gonna go ahead and put 4 out of 5 for both. I'm kind of grouping that in. So they evolved over time, but also if you put them up against the other people within their space, I think the creativity of like them actually playing instruments and doing that kind of thing, and like the anonymous like robot uniforms, like I think they were just creative within that entire
I'm gonna match
genre.
you. I'm gonna match you on both of those for many of those same reasons. That's kind of where my brain was headed to. Particularly that the last album, Random Access Memories, bringing in all the live instrumentation. That's what bumps them up from a 3 to a 4. On both those categories for me, actually, creativity and evolution. You're not going to hear a lot of that, I imagine, in the electronic space. So that gives them the 4 in creativity. And you're not going to hear bands evolve in that way as much in the electronic space.
All right.
And that's what gives me the 4 in evolution as well. So replayability.
I'm at a 5 out of 5 for replayability. I listen to Daft Punk all the time. I never get sick of it when it comes on. Like, and this is what's crazy is like Daft Punk, like literally, because it's dance music, you're not getting any variety from the first 30 seconds to the last 30 seconds. It's just about the exact same 30 seconds, copy and pasted for 3-4 minutes. That's like what dance music is. It's just repetitive, repetitive beats. Now they evolved past this into like proper song structure, like in Random Access Memories and stuff. You know, there's actually like it's not just like the same repeat thing like it was when they first released, but I'm at a 5 out of 5, specifically for songs from Random Access Memories. I won't lie, like after I hear the same like chorus and beat for about 2 minutes, you know, from the earlier stuff, I'll hit next song because I don't need to hear the same thing for 2 more minutes unless I'm like on drugs and dancing, you know, then I probably
I was going to say, like, you're not doing enough drugs.
Yeah. That's my bad.
Yeah. So for those, it's funny. It's funny. The reasons you give get you to 5 out of 5. The reasons you give are similar to mine, but they get me about 2 out of 5.
That's what I figured.
For Daft Punk.
Yeah, I figured.
So that brings us to cultural impact. How did they impact the overall culture? This one is somewhat objective.
Yeah, this one's weird.
Obviously, the biggest one we've ever had was Taylor Swift, which actually rated a 6 out of 5.
Yeah. I'm at like a 3 out of 5, maybe. Like,
yeah,
they weren't big, but like within the cult, like, you know, Daft Punk, like definitely like people know who they are. If you
clean up at the Grammys, like, you get a 3 at least, you know.
Yeah, I'm at like a 3. Yeah.
And then perhaps the two most subjective categories here are emotional connection and nostalgia factor. I think both of these, I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun here. Both of these are going to be maybe a 3 for me. Maybe being a little generous there, but that feels right. I mean, I definitely have some nostalgia just from their music being so prevalent around me, you know, around those times you were talking about high school, things like that.
So I'm at a 3 out of 5 for emotional connection with you. And I'm actually only at a 4 out of 5 for nostalgia. I know it would feel like a 5, but like, I don't know why. I don't feel very nostalgic because I kind of discovered them post high school ish, you know, like around that college time. So even though that is like in the past and I should feel nostalgia from it, I've just never stopped listening to them. So it doesn't feel like, I don't know if that makes sense. I just don't have any,
it wasn't like a time period.
Yeah, it's like I don't have any memories or time things associated directly with them. They've just kind of been a static music that I've listened to over this whole time. So like that's why it's like a 4 and not like a 5, but overall it's still pretty good score. So got me at what, a 3.8 out of 5, and you're coming in at
I'm at a 3.2.
Still over 3, not bad.
Mine was rounded up. It was 3.16666. So I just brought it up to 3.2.
Oh, there you go.
Yours was 3.8 and some change, so I just brought it down to 3.8. So there we go. So that's Daft Punk. I want to thank you guys for being here with us today for another fun episode, diving deep into some of the biggest musicians and bands of all time with us here at Melomaniax. I am Dallas.
And I am Ashton. Thank you so much, guys.
We'll see you guys next week.